It reminds me of this other thread that says, if an AI agent carries out a workflow consisting of 10 tasks autonomously, but it has a 10% error rate per task, the compounded error rate over the whole entire workflow is 65%. There's a lot of nuance building production LLM systems. And I think this brings up a really good point as to why certain AI companies have released a model that hasn't been so magical or been able to do as so many things as some of these other models can do. The biggest example of this most recently has been Apple. In their WWDC keynote, was it 2 weeks ago, I think at this point, they announced that they're going to have multiple different models. And I actually have a little documentation here of what I was thinking when they announced all this. So they essentially have a lot of the same things that we've been working with within this AI infrastructure. And just like how Apple likes to do it, they decided to give everything kind of their own name. But a lot of it is very similar to the things that we've been working with very consistently over the past 6, 12, 18 months. It all kind of comes down to the same core major features. So I'll start here within this tab called Orchestration. And this is essentially how Siri is going to decide whether it needs to work over here or if it needs to work over here. So what's going to happen is a user will activate Siri, and then it's going to ask them a question, or it'll ask it a question. And then this orchestration step is going to determine whether or not it's a simple task that can be done on device. And that's going to be done with these on-device models. And that's the local 3 billion parameter LLM, the quote unquote small model that can handle all on-device tasks quickly and easily. If the orchestration determines that it's a more advanced task, that could be some of the examples that they were mentioning on stage, like, oh, when is my mother's flight getting in? And I need to book a car to then sync up at the right time to know to pick her up when she arrives, checking flight status, getting the order status of the driver or the car. These are all things that are going to need to be done outside. And that's where that pop-up comes, says, hey, we need your permission to send this data to their server model. And this is where the larger model that can be connected to other things resides, basically. And this is so that Apple users can accomplish these more complex tasks without having to have a super intense piece of hardware in the phone that is actually capable of running a 400 billion parameter model. Right now, on the current phones, having this local 3 billion model is going to be something that the phones can actually run relatively well. The other interesting pieces that have been very well known throughout most of the AI agent space has been, how are you storing your personalized data, aka your knowledge base, aka semantic index in the case of Apple. And this is all the information coming from all of your apps and Siri and everything else that is already on your device, all your apps and your experiences. The app intents toolbox is essentially function calling. So it's going to allow developers to be able to connect requests from users to then be able to take actions within their apps. So for example, think about how I want to be able to ask Siri to play a song on Spotify. That today is not currently possible, but through app intents and function calling, the developers at Spotify could theoretically allow us to say a song that we want to play, and then the AI, Siri, whatever it's going to be called, Siri 2.0, it'll be able to go into that app and then play the song natively right on your device without having to do anything crazy. So this is something that I think we're going to get more and more information about over time, but it's very interesting to see that Apple is taking a very similar approach to a lot of other companies to see kind of how they're going to be able to run tasks in the most efficient way. And this kind of brings up one of the other aspects of how a lot of these AI agents are making mistakes. And one of the things that people were saying about Apple's keynote is how it was maybe not as magic or not as cool as what we might expect Apple to create. And this thread describes it very well. What Apple demonstrated on stage was the idea that you would ask Siri a question, and depending on whether the question leveraged on-device data and insights or requiring broader knowledge, the answer would route to the appropriate AI. if you had a question that would require calendar, email, or map information, Apple Intelligence would be the underlying AI. But if you had a question about a dinner recipe, this query would be detected as needing broader knowledge and route it to ChatGPT. Interestingly, we can see that this is generalizing how heterogeneous AI agents will interact with each other in the future. You may be in one platform and ask a question of an application, and that application will go out and federate the question to other AI agents in another system that they're allowed to talk to. Imagine a scenario where you're inside of Slack and ask Slack AI a question about an HR policy, where that underlying content is stored in Box. We can imagine that this workflow would be accomplished by the Slack agent determining that the question can leverage data sitting inside a Box and ask the Box AI agent for the answer. This gets even more interesting and wild when multiple systems are involved. Of course, this will introduce a whole new set of challenges around authentication, permissions, handling non-deterministic interactions between software and response latency, but it's clear that in a world mediated by AI interactions, our AI agents will be working together to accomplish tasks for us. This will introduce all new questions around how we will design software in the future when AI is mediating so much of the work that we get done behind the scenes for the user. What a cool time to be building technology.